Okay, so today we're going to talk about solving trig functions using a graphing calculator and by graphing. Okay, so it's really important you have a graphing calculator. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do this. So we're going to solve these equations simply by using a graphing calculator. It's very, very simple. The first step, anytime we solve an equation, though, is to make sure that it's equal to 0. Because how we're going to use this is by solving for zeros. I hope you've done this before with parabolas and some other functions. If not, I'll show you how the calculator does it. It's very simple. So if we have this function here, it's the sine x equals negative 0.5. So to solve this, first of all, we need this to be equal to 0. So I'm going to go sine of x plus 0.75 equals 0. All right, so now I can graph this as a y equals. Okay, now when I graph a y equals, this is the picture that I get right here. Okay, now this already has answers on it because I needed screenshots. So I put it on here, but these are the pictures that I get. Now to solve this, we're solving for zeros. Typically, you need to see what is it going to be, what's your period, okay, how often does the function repeat, okay, in this case, and most of the time, it's going to be 2 pi, tangents are going to be pi. So you just need to look at your graph and see how often does it repeat. So in this case, it's 2 pi, so everything that we're going to have, our answers is going to be plus 2k pi, all right? So obviously, there's two places where this graph crosses 0, here and here. Now, to use the graphing calculator to find zeros, there's a couple of things that you need to do. First of all, you need to go second trace. Okay, and if you already know how to do this, you can skip forward through this part if you know how to find zeros in your graphing calculator. Second trace, and you'll notice number 2 says 0. You're going to click on that. This is the easy part. Okay. The next part, the hard part though, is that you have to be able to identify where it wants to graph. So it's going to ask you for a left and a right bound. So when it does, you'll be tracing along your function, and you want to go somewhere above the 0 mark, and you're going to hit enter. Then it's going to ask for a right bound to go somewhere below and hit enter. Then it will ask for a guess or something like, I can't remember, my calculator's not working right. So it will ask for something, you'll hit enter, and then it will give you this. It will say x equals this, y equals 0. The y always has to equal 0. So what it's doing is it's saying, I want to find the 0 that's between these two spots. Now, to do the second one, you're going to do the exact same thing. Second trace 0. And this time, though, the very first place you want this 0, so you're going to come here, and then enter again. All right, play with this a little bit with some functions. Make sure that you can find your zeros correctly. In fact, just graph this one on your graphing calculator and make sure that you get these answers. So again, with all of these, this is a period of 2, so it's going to repeat period of 2 pi. So you're going to make sure that you have your answers plus 2k pi, like in TG2. All right, because it's asking us to find all of the answers to this function. And that's impossible because the function goes on forever. All right, moving on. So these are just directions, okay? And this is just kind of what we just talked about. I want to just go over it really quick. It says write the equation in the form of f of x equals 0. So that's why we always solve for 0. We determine the period, all right? Typically 2 pi, sometimes it's not. All right, you have to pay attention to what's going on. So then you'll graph it on your graphing calculator over that period, and then you'll use your calculator zeros to find the x-intercepts, that's the solutions. And then for each one, you write the answer plus k times the period, okay? Most of the time it's 2 pi, sometimes it's not. So let's look at a couple more examples. Okay, so this one right here, and again, I put solutions up here so that you can see the graphing calculator pictures. So this is 3 sine squared x minus cosine x minus 2 equals 0. You notice that it's already equal to 0. So both sine x and cosine x have a period of 2 pi, so more than likely your period is 2 pi. So you can change your graphing calculator. If you notice this first screenshot here, this one, it graphed it over a longer period, just to kind of see what it looks like. You'll notice that it does repeat, okay? The period is 2 pi, so we'll see it here, it's 2 pi. At this point, once we have that, we're going to solve for the zeros by clicking 0, and we need to find this one and that one, okay? So we're going to find those zeros, and I'm pretty sure I have the answers. I thought I put the answers up here. I hope so. I'm going to have to solve one of my graphing calculators again. Yeah. So, oh yeah, I didn't even notice this. There's 4 zeros. Do you notice that? So you're going to have 4 answers. All right. So all of them plus 2k pi. All right. Plus 2k pi. So make sure you don't miss any zeros like I just about did there. Alright, so when we graph those together, this is what we end up with. Graphing calculator stuff, I know I'm not doing a whole lot on the board, but this is because you really have to be putting them in your graphing calculators and solving that way. Alright? Okay, so here's another one. And again, I know all the answers are up here. I apologize for that. I should have done this a little bit better, but I wanted to make sure that we had the pictures from the graphing calculator. So solve tangent of x equals 3 sine 2x. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to solve for 0. So I'll end up with tan x minus 3 sine 2x equals 0. Now, if you graph it in your graphing calculator, you'll notice it repeating itself over and over and over again. This right here is one period. So this period right here, notice it goes from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So the period is pi. So our answer is always going to be plus k pi. Alright. Now, graphing calculator, you'll notice there are 3 zeros. Okay. I use my graphing calculator function. I second trace 0, and then I left bound and right bound each one of them. Okay, so I'll do this in 3 steps, and I'll get my answers. Now, this one, you don't necessarily have to do in a graphing calculator. You know that that's 0. So I have 3 answers here. This one right here is negative 1.1503 plus k pi, 1.1503 plus k pi, and then 0 plus k pi, or just k pi. So those are my answers for my zeros. So every time it repeats itself, it will have those functions. Make sure that your graphing calculators, this is super important, make sure that your graphing calculators are in radian mode. If it's in degree mode, your graphs are not going to work right. So, and that was it. Good luck with your homework tonight. Make sure you use your graphing calculators. So.